Hello and welcome. This is the fourth video in my Philosophical Foundations or Foundational Livings video series. And this one's going to be a shorter segment. There's just going to be two videos in this, and they're both going to be shorter because the concepts are a lot simpler and they're just kind of based around my personal experiences. The first concept is make sure you know what a thing really is. And I think that's important because we engage with so many different events and occurrences, things that happen that we perceive or sense, or things that we sort of imply meaning to that, we try to make them something that they're not really. And I think it's a fairly easy thing to understand once you see my first example, so we're just going to jump right in. Shortly after I finished high school, I was going to go listen to my friend Nick play some music down at this coffee shop cafe place. This coffee shop cafe place is called Interstar Studios, and it used to be this bar that someone had bought and transformed into a coffee house. So it had a little stage in the back, and someone could sit and play music, and you could have a bunch of chairs, seating. So my friend Nick is this fabulous guitarist and really good at a bunch of other instruments as well, and he was going to play a show there that night. So I'm going to see it, and when I get there, some other friends from high school are already there. There's this one girl in particular, use a fake name just for her sake, we'll call her Wendy. So Wendy is there, and she's got a nice, tall coffee drink. Caffeine, sugar, frothy milk foam, the works, right? So she's drinking this coffee drink. It's a nice, tall cup, and Nick's not even there yet. He's not set up yet. But I'm just kind of mingling, chit-chatting. I say, hi, whatever. And after a bit of chatting, Nick arrives. When Nick arrives, he starts setting up his gear, the instruments and stuff. And the guy who owns the Interstar, excellent entrepreneur, he shouts out, okay, Nick's going to start the first half of his set soon, so if you need a drink, better come get it now. So Wendy and her friends run back up to the barista, and they get another tall, large, caffeinated, sugary, frothy milk foam coffee drink. And they grab that, and they come back, they're drinking that, and I go find a chair, and Wendy comes and stands next to me. So we're there, we're kind of standing mostly, kind of dancing there by the chairs, dancing, listening to Nick play. His music is phenomenal. And so Nick also is a Christian, and he had this group of Christian friends from this local church. And he was only playing instrumental music there, so no vocals. And I was just there for the awesome music, but a lot of his Christian friends were as well. And Wendy is one of these Christian friends. So the first set's going awesome. We're dancing, we're moving, it's great. He's done with the first set. Intermission. Interstar Studios, the owner shouts out, if you want another coffee drink, come and get it now. Get your order in now before intermission's over. Get it and get back to your seat. So Wendy and the friends, they run up, they get another tall, caffeinated, sugary, frothy milk foam coffee drink. And she comes back. Then when Nick starts his second set, and about halfway through, Wendy has drank that full cup. So she's had 3 full cups of sugar, caffeine, and that nice, warm, frothy milk fat. And she gets intense. So as we're standing there dancing, I feel her hand grab my hand kind of down at my waist. And she throws my hand up in the air above our heads, and she's holding my hand up, and then she lowers it down and she pulls me forward and bends me all the way down to my knees I'm doing yoga. And then she throws us back up again, and then down again, and then back up again. And we go 5 times, I think, throwing my arms up in the air and pulling me down. And I'm just letting it happen because I'm wow, this is kind of funny. And then Nick finishes that song, pauses, and Wendy turns to me. She grabs both my hands. She looks me right in the eyes. She gets really close, and she says, Phil, couldn't you just feel the Lord's Spirit right then? And I thought, Wendy, you've had 3 caffeinated, sugary, frothy milk foam drinks like that. She's on a sugar high, a caffeine buzz, and that frothy milk foam feels warm and wonderful in your body. And music, to begin with, has made people want to get up and dance since people used 2 sticks to make it in the nature. They danced around fires, and they danced around their cultural halls and their etc. for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. People have been dancing to music because there's something awesome and magical about it. That human spirit just wants to get up and dance and jive and move around when it hears that awesome music. And you could be religious. I'm not saying you can't be religious and have your concept of whatever God or deity is speaking to you, but know what a thing is. Like, this was simply all this caffeine and sugar and that good feeling of music and that warm, frothy milk, just setting her on so many like substance highs here. And it's no wonder she felt amazing and awesome. I thought the music was awesome too. I wanted to dance, I wanted to shout, you know? But she couldn't see a thing for what it was. And I don't know into her psyche if she's reaching for something because she needs to replace something in her life, a hole in her life, or anything like that. I don't presume to know like why she needs that belief and why she needs to believe that it was something other than just the sugar and the caffeine and the awesome vibe of the music, which are fine things to get excited about and want to lose yourself for the moment and want to get so excited about and just, let go and release and like shake off your boundaries. Like that, you can do that for those things anyways. You can do that. And it just really stuck with me all these years as like, she really couldn't see the simple answer. Like sometimes the simplest answer is the right one, and the most obvious one is the right one. It's all the sugar and the caffeine and just the cool vibe of the music. I think that's a really good story for me anyways, to remember to always know what a thing is, to not overemphasize or exaggerate or to put other stuff in there to believe other fantastical things are happening. Again, you can have your religion and you can have your sense of spirituality and have a sense of connecting with something. And you can even have a ayahuasca trip be meaningful, but you don't have to connect a ayahuasca trip to like some religious reading you were doing. My second example then, similar, another religious story, and I don't mean this to be a condemnation of someone having religion or spirituality, or believing that your Lord or whoever can speak to you or give you energy or make you feel awesome. But I think it's important to just realize the reality and know what something truly is. So here's the second example. So I used to have this friend named, again, we'll use a fake name, Mark. So Mark and I were pretty good friends, and there was a few other friends in our group as well. But I had lost contact with him from traveling away to another city. But at this point, I was revisiting the old city. And while I was there on visit, I was going to the old YMCA. And as I'm walking into the YMCA, Mark is walking out. And he's like, whoa, hey, man. I'm like, hey, how's it going? I haven't seen you in years. He's like, yeah, how's it been? How you doing? And he says, let's catch up. And I was like, yeah, man, that'd be great. I'm here for a little while. Sure, let's meet up. And he's like, why don't we just catch up now? I got something really important to tell you. And I was like, all right, yeah, fine, that's fine. So we sat in like the YMCA lobby and we're just talking. And after a few kind of like icebreaker, like catch up questions, I kind of asked him like, hey, like the old scene, you and a couple other guys like were a little heavier into like the drinking and stuff like that. Like, I don't know, you're always talking about kind of like quitting, and you smoked cigarettes and you always talked about quitting. Like, how'd that go for you? And he was like, yeah, man, I quit smoking. I quit drinking. He said he even like was doing some harder drugs at the time, smoking a lot of marijuana. And I was like, oh man, that's really good for you. It's really good for you. And he's like, yeah, that's what I want to tell you about. Sure, tell me about it. And I kind of imagined something was coming, but I didn't imagine this. What he told me was that he had been like really addicted to, cigarettes, marijuana, alcohol, other harder drugs. And he was like cutting people out of his life. He was losing friends. He was losing family. They were abandoning him because he was like being awful to them. And he admitted all this. He knew like it was his fault because of all these addictions. And he was like, I just needed to get myself clean. And the only person that was going to help me at all was my uncle. And he said he was just going to like quit cold turkey, just quit all these addictions at the same time and just cut them all out of his life. And he also like was extremely broke at this time, so he didn't even have like much food and water. He said he actually had to get some food from strangers. So he's describing to me this scene where he's been like for weeks trying to cutting all of these substances, and he's just in the throes of all this substance withdrawal. But he's also dehydrated, and he's also on a very low calorie diet. Now, if you don't know, like when you have extremely low calorie diet intake, you can start to have weird mental and emotional and even like physical presence or awareness, like oddities and phenomena happen to you. And when you're dehydrated, you can also hallucinate. So those two things together, paired up, would already invoke hallucinations. But you throw nicotine withdrawal, alcohol withdrawal, marijuana withdrawal, and other harder drugs withdrawal all on top of that, and you've got an awesome recipe to see some crazy, crazy shit. And that's exactly what happened. But he had been reading the Book of Mormon because his uncle is Mormon and always kind of like was pushing him in that direction. And Mark was always like resisting it, didn't believe in that stuff. But he was reading this Book of Mormon while he's going through these insane withdrawals and dehydration. And he said that he saw the vision that Joseph Smith saw. He saw the exact vision that Joseph Smith saw that he described in the Book of Mormon. And so that's why he knew he needs to convert to Mormonism and be a Mormon. And he like ended up getting married and stuff and told me she was nice and great and it was all fine. And I was happy for him that he had gotten out of that addiction. But I kind of couldn't help myself but press a little bit. And I said, well, dude, don't you think that maybe it had something to do with like all the substance withdrawal you were going through and the dehydration and the like starvation level like calorie intake? And he was like, no, man, it was the exact vision from the book. And I'm like, yeah, I know, because you read it. Like it planted that seed in your mind. That's why you saw it, because you just read it and then you hallucinated it. And he's like, no, I don't think it's that. He's like, no, that's not possible. I'm like, no, that's like, I think that's exactly how it works. Like if you read other religious texts, you would have seen their hallucinations. You would have had their visions that were described in those books. Even if you had watched some really impressionable movies that had like, you know, some horror scene or some really dramatic or really like powerfully like you had some like really sensational scenes, you maybe would have had those hallucinations. It's just whatever you took in. It was all of your inputs during this extremely stressed time where your mind is just reeling from all of these substance withdrawals and dehydration. Of course you saw the thing that you just planted in your mind. And of course I didn't say it to him that directly or harshly. I kind of tried to suggest those things, but he just kind of wouldn't take it. And I was happy that he had moved out of addiction. But I just couldn't help but think again, latching onto some other thing instead of just recognizing something for what it is. And he probably needed it to be meaningful to pull himself further out of that. And I don't know if he's ever looked back on that and go, oh, wait, yeah, that is probably what happened. I'm not sure if he's ever changed. So I think this can become a problem when we are looking for something and we experience anything else and we want to basically believe that that thing is what it is. Confirmation bias, basically. But if you cannot recognize what a thing really is, then you're going to be sucked into confirmation bias like your whole life. And I think that's going to lead to a lot of really negative or just neutral, static, no movement forward kind of situations where you just fail to understand what really happened. Because sometimes the simplest answer is the correct answer, is the truth. But in these instances, it wasn't that. It was the substances. It was very clearly those things that had elevated that precise, specific circumstance in an intense situation. The mind just latched onto something else to sort of substitute, oh, it was that thing. And I'll quickly go through my third example. It sort of is similar to the hallucination thing, but to be brief, I was hiking out near Bend, Oregon. There's this cave called Skeleton Cave, and there's no public access. You have to go in with a guide, only they have the permit to get in there. And it's called Skeleton Cave because there's like a skeleton of a bear and a skeleton of a man found like right next to each other in one of like the little micro caves inside the cave. And people always guessed, like, did they fight and kill each other? Did they just die at like two different times randomly, but they had both gone into the same little like, micro cave to die or something like that. But no one really knows. But what's important is this cave is extremely long and it's pretty deep. The guide led us down to a place where there are literally 0 lumens of light. Now, your optic nerves are designed to detect lumens, but they're not only designed to respond to a lumen, but they're designed to send a signal down the optic nerve to the brain, to send them some signal. There is no design for them to send no signal. And the guide was explaining all this to us. And as we're sitting there in the absolute pitch black, and we had turned off our white lights at that point and only used the red light because it doesn't leave an impression on your eye, and for a long time. And so we were sitting in absolutely 0 lumens for a long time. And he said, okay, we're going to do absolute silence for 20 minutes. Everyone just sit in absolute silence. And he's like, please, everyone respect it. If you have any problem with it, let me know now. And the assistant guide will help you out. And the rest of the people can sit here. But while we were sitting there, it didn't matter if you opened your eyes or closed your eyes. But your eyes are meant to send a signal to your brain. And when there are no lumens for it to receive, it still sometimes sends signals of something it's seeing. I saw weird shapes and colors sometimes. I saw stuff that wasn't just pitch black because the optic nerve, the optic sensor, and the nerve wants to have stimulation. And after our 20-minute break, the guide asked people, what did you see? Some people said they saw scenes from what they saw yesterday, just replaying in their mind. Other people said they saw visions of their friends or just other random things or just other things that have been on there. And one of them even said he saw the skeleton of the bear and the man from the cave, from the story, there in the dirt. He could see it, and it was changing and moving, and it wasn't a static image. And so people have hallucinations for very simple physiological or anatomical reasons. And people have sensations throughout our body from very physiological and anatomical reasons. And I know these 3 examples are really related to that, to substance and awareness stimulation of the brain and optic nerve and stuff. And substances stimulate the brain. So maybe this heavily surrounds this idea of we can have a lot of physical, chemical, electrical, and physical stimulus, but the concept does not apply only to when it's a substance or a physical or a mental or something like that, a perception-based influence under these stimuluses. It applies, I think, to everything. Make sure you know a thing is what it is, and don't imprint other things on that because you want it to be that. And this isn't as simply as just saying avoid confirmation bias. You can say that, but there are times that we get so caught up in something, we don't even think we're doing the confirmation bias. And sometimes there's an extremely simple answer of yeah, I was high on sugar and caffeine, or yeah, I was going through intense drug withdrawals, or yes, I was sensory deprived. And those things can have really dramatic effects on your perception and awareness of what's going on around you. I do think it's important because in my life, I've just seen a lot of people not realize what's really going on, and they describe something to me. I'm like, but that's not really what's happening. The Korean guy that came to dodgeball and tried doing the get up at 5 a.m. and butter coffee, and he said it was working. And then he said, and then when I asked him about what carbs he used to eat, because he said he doesn't even know what a complex and simple carb is, he said, oh, I'm going to miss donuts, French fries, and white rice. Well, yeah, you were just eating crap simple carbs and a whole bunch of sugars and fats and oils on that. Yeah, it's not because you did the 5 a.m. butter coffee thing. It's because you cut that junk. That's why you feel better. Not because you watched some YouTube shorts from some fitness bro who then tried to sell you something. So I think know what a thing is before you get caught up in what you want it to be. Caffeinated, sugary, frothy milk